The morning of the wedding, I woke with a heaviness that felt wrong. My hand reached for my head, searching for the curls Clarence once stroked. My fingers froze. Bare skin. Rough exposed. My breath caught as I clawed at my scalp, nothing left. My hair gone, stolen in the night. A sound escaped me, half gasp, half cry. The mirror confirmed it. A bald, pale head where a woman once stood. On the nightstand lay a single note, folded with precision, written in the restrained hand of my son Marcus. Today is my day. You must not outshine me. Now it's fair. The words pierced deeper than knives. My only son had marked me as his rival. I sat in front of the mirror, my hands trembling as they touched the bare scalp again and again, as if repetition could change what had been done. The skin was raw from my own scratching, but I could not stop. It was not just hair that had been taken from me. It was years of dignity, womanhood stripped in one night. The face in the mirror was mine, yet not mine. 63 years etched into lines around my eyes, lips pressed tight against the cry that wanted to escape. For decades I had carried others, patients in hospital beds, my husband through his illness, my son through his schooling, and never once asked for repayment. Now the reflection showed only the cost of those years. Memories pressed in on me, sharp as broken glass. 20 years of marriage. Clarence's strong voice reading aloud in the evenings, his steady hands holding mine after long shifts. Then the silence that followed his sudden collapse, the sterile corridor of the hospital where I had stood alone with the doctor's words still echoing. There was nothing more we could do. I buried Clarence with my own hands, arranging the funeral, my own savings paying the bills. His will, written in his careful script, gave everything to me, the house, the accounts, the pension he had worked for. He had wanted me safe. He had wanted me to grow old without fear. But Marcus had read the will with a twisted mouth. I remember his voice as clearly as if he were standing in the room again. Dad should have left that to me. I'm the man. The words were said when he was 22, but they never left me. They grew with him like a shadow taller than his frame. Every time he borrowed money, every time he missed a payment, every time I covered his mistakes, I felt the same bitterness in his silence. He wanted what was mine. He believed it was stolen from him. And I, weak from grief, weak from love, kept giving. Tuition fees, rent when he fell behind, car repairs, medical bills when he broke his arm. I told myself it was what mothers did. But the truth was simpler. I feared losing him, the last piece of Clarence left in this world. Now, staring at my scalp, I saw clearly that it had all been a preparation. His resentment had ripened, and this day, his wedding day, was the harvest. Stripping me bare was not only cruelty, it was revenge. A long-planned punishment for holding what he believed was his. I pressed my palms flat against the vanity table, steadying myself. The silence of the room seemed heavy, broken only by the faint tick of the clock on the wall. It was 9 in the morning, and guests would soon gather, expecting me to appear polished and proud, the mother of the groom. Instead, I sat like a patient after surgery, mutilated in secret. The loneliness struck then with a force that bent me forward. Clarence was gone. My sisters lived far away. Friends had grown distant over the years of shifts, funerals, and sacrifices. I had made my son the center of my world, and in return he had taken a razor to my head and a knife to my heart. I thought of the hours I had worked. Night shifts with swollen feet, the stench of antiseptic clinging to my uniform, the endless charting of medications and vital signs. Every dollar earned had gone into Marcus's future. His books, his courses, his apartment. I had told myself it was worth it, that he would remember the sacrifices, that one day he would look at me with gratitude instead of contempt. But gratitude was not in his note, only calculation. Now it's fair. The phrase circled in my mind like a curse. Fair. As if love could be measured in accounts. As if my labor, my grief, my body itself had been unfair to him. As if taking from me, humiliating me, destroying me was balance restored. I touched the bare scalp once more, slower this time, almost tender, as if I were consoling a stranger. This is revenge, I whispered to the woman in the mirror. This was planned. And for the first time in years I allowed myself to believe it. The door opened without warning, and Kiera stepped into the room. The bride, dressed in a soft robe, her hair pinned back, her face glowing with youth. She carried herself with the easy certainty of a woman who believed the world was laid out for her. Her eyes landed on me. I had managed to pull a dark wig over my bare scalp, though my hand still shook from fastening it. She stopped, blinked once, and then smiled. "Mrs. Johnson, you look amazing. Such a bold new style. You're glowing." The words floated lightly, but each one pressed against the rawness inside me. My body stiffened. Bold. Glowing. Amazing. To me it sounded like mockery, like someone applauding the ashes of a house that had just burned down. I studied her face carefully, searching for the smirk, the knowing glint, the cruelty that must surely be hiding there. But there was none. Her expression was open, even kind, as if she truly believed what she said. I forced a small smile, tight and silent. Not a word passed my lips. Inside my thoughts tangled. So she plays with me too. Or perhaps she does not know. Perhaps she believes this was my choice, a style, an experiment. Perhaps Marcus has told her nothing. Her voice went on, casual, almost friendly. "Everyone will be so surprised when they see you. You really do shine, Mrs. Johnson. It's wonderful." The name Mrs. Johnson struck me like a blow. That was Clarence's name, my husband's, the man who had protected me until death. To hear it used in this light tone, while my son stripped me of dignity, filled me with a quiet rage that I kept locked behind my smile. Kiera adjusted a ribbon at her wrist, still smiling, and then moved toward the door. "I'll see you downstairs. It's going to be a beautiful day." The door closed again and I was left in silence. I sat very still. The smile I had shown her fell from my face as quickly as it had appeared. My chest felt hollow, my hands folded tightly in my lap. So this was the game. To the guests I was glowing, bold, amazing. To my son I was stripped, silenced, hidden. And perhaps Kiera truly did not know, or perhaps she did. And this was her way of keeping me in my place, with praise that sounded like knives. I whispered only to myself, "So she plays too." The clock ticked on and I waited. On the highest shelf of my closet, hidden beneath winter scarves, I found the box. A wig I had bought many years ago for a hospital costume party, when the staff decided to dress in ridiculous styles to make the patients laugh. It had been a harmless joke, worn for one evening and forgotten. Now it was the only thing within reach. The cardboard was dry and dusty, the hair inside flattened with age. It was too small, too heavy, and the color no longer matched my own. Still, my hand shook as I placed it on my bare scalp. I tugged at the strands, trying to make it sit evenly. The mirror showed a crooked image, unnatural, outdated, but at least not bald. I was still pulling the wig into place when the door opened without warning. Kiera entered, light-footed, wrapped in a white robe, her dark hair pinned back, her face glowing with the kind of certainty only the young possess. She paused when her eyes fell on me. For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then she smiled. "Mrs. Johnson, you look amazing. Such a bold new style. You're glowing." The words hung in the air. My back stiffened, my fingers froze on the wig's edge. To her it was praise. To me it was a knife disguised in silk. I forced my lips into a curve, a smile without breath, and gave no answer. My silence pressed against the weight of her cheerfulness. Inside, thoughts tumbled sharp and fast. So she plays with me too. Or perhaps she does not know. Perhaps Marcus has told her nothing. She looks at this wig and thinks it is my choice, my whim, an expression of boldness. Not the covering of a wound. Kiera adjusted a ribbon at her wrist, her voice smooth, careless in its brightness. "Everyone will be surprised when they see you. It really suits you." Her sincerity only deepened my unease. Mockery or ignorance both cut the same. She turned toward the door, still smiling, and said lightly, "It's going to be a beautiful day." Then she left, closing the door softly behind her. I remained very still. The smile I had forced slipped away at once. My scalp prickled under the wig, the fibers itching, heavy, false. It felt less like protection and more like a mask that pressed me further into silence. I lowered my head and whispered to the empty room, "So she plays too." The clock ticked on. I sat in the quiet, the wig tight against my skin, and understood that nothing about this day belonged to me. When Kiera's footsteps faded, I rose and crossed to the closet again. From the back corner, beneath a stack of folded linens, I pulled a long white envelope. My name was written on it in careful script. Inside were the documents I had prepared. papers that would transfer half of my inheritance to Marcus. I had planned to present them after the ceremony. A mother's gift to a son beginning his new life. A gesture of love, security, and faith. My hand shook as I touched the seal. For a moment the old reflex returned. The urge to give, to smooth over every wound with money, to sacrifice again so that he might smile. The instinct of a nurse, a wife, a mother. Always to bind up others, never myself. But my fingers froze. The note on the nightstand burned in my memory. Now it's fair. Fair in his mind meant stripping me bare, humiliating me into silence. I set the envelope on the table and pressed my hand flat against it. No, I whispered aloud. My voice sounded strange, firm, final. You will not receive this gift anymore. The air in the room seemed lighter. For the first time in years I felt the faintest breath of freedom. I opened my purse and reached inside. At the bottom was a small digital recorder, one I used years ago when I worked nights and kept notes for long shifts. A simple device forgotten until now. I held it in my hand, weighing its promise. If Marcus wished to play games of humiliation, I would play with facts. If he spread lies about my mind, my health, my worth, then I would answer with his own words. Not anger, not pleading, just evidence. I slipped the recorder into my purse and closed the clasp with a quiet click. Today would not pass in silence. Today everything must be decided. The church was filled with flowers, white lilies arranged in tall glass vases that caught the sunlight from the stained glass windows. Guests murmured softly, their voices blending with the organ's slow prelude. I sat in the front pew, my hands folded neatly in my lap, the wig tugged tight against my scalp. No one around me saw the wound beneath it. No one smelled the fear I carried. The aisle stretched out like a corridor of judgment. At the altar, Marcus stood tall in his black suit, his expression carefully composed for the crowd. But when his eyes slid to me, the mask slipped. His mouth tightened. His lips moved without sound. Sit quietly. Don't ruin my day. I read the words as clearly as if he had shouted them. I did not lower my eyes. For the first time in many years, I looked at my son without fear. I gave the smallest nod, but it was not for him, it was for myself. A vow, silent and strong. I would sit quietly, but not as his victim. The ceremony unfolded with practiced grace. Vows were exchanged, rings slipped onto fingers, the kiss met with applause. To the guests it was flawless. To me it was theater built on betrayal. At the reception hall, I took my place at the family table. My fork rested untouched against the plate. I could not eat. Around me relatives laughed, glasses clinked, photographers snapped picture after picture. Yet I heard the whispers. They floated across the table, carried in hushed tones. She looks so pale, not herself. Is she unwell? Poor thing, she seems confused. The words reached my ears like thorns. I saw Marcus move between tables, shaking hands, smiling. His voice carried farther than he intended. Mother hasn't been well. She doesn't fully understand things these days. But we are grateful she could be here. A soft chorus of pity followed. Heads tilted. Eyes filled with false concern. My chest tightened. He was preparing the ground. Not only had he stripped me bare in private, now he sought to strip me of credibility in public. When I excused myself to the corridor, I found a moment of stillness. The noise of celebration dulled behind the heavy doors. My hand rested on my purse, feeling the hard outline of the recorder inside. One step closer. From the far side of the corridor I heard voices. Male laughter, harsh and careless. I knew that laugh. I pressed myself against the wall, silent. Marcus spoke. His tone was sharp, arrogant, unguarded. I did what I had to. Shaved her bald. Now she'll understand, she's not the boss. Today is my day, my family, my inheritance. My breath caught. My hand reached inside my purse, thumb pressing the recorder's button. A tiny red light blinked. His voice, my son's voice, filled the device with truth. The man with him laughed again. You're cold, Marcus. But I see your point. I turned away, my body trembling not with fear but with clarity. The mask had cracked. He had spoken the truth in the dark corridor, and I had captured it. When I returned to the hall, I was calm. Marcus raised his glass, toasting guests, playing the proud groom. He did not see the shift in me. He did not hear the silence I carried, sharper than any blade. Relatives still whispered. pity dripping from their mouths. But I sat straighter. I let their words pass through me like air. They did not know that in my purse rested evidence stronger than all their gossip. I lifted my glass and waited. The moment was coming. The reception swelled with music and chatter, but I carried silence with me like a shield. My purse rested on my lap, heavy not with coins or bills but with truth. A small device, no larger than my palm, held my son's words. His cruelty, his arrogance, his confession. I replayed them in my mind, each syllable etched in iron. Shaved her bald. Now she'll understand. She's not the boss. Today is my day, my family, my inheritance. For years I had endured his contempt with bowed head, afraid to lose him. Now I realized there was nothing left to lose. He had already stripped me of dignity. What remained was not fear but clarity. At the table, relatives leaned closer, speaking in tones they thought discreet. Poor Mabel, she's confused. Look at her hands, they shake. She should be careful with her money. Someone ought to help her manage things. I let their pity wash over me. It was the picture Marcus had painted for them. The fragile mother, weak, unstable, easy to dismiss. He believed he had secured the ground, prepared their ears for whatever story he wished to tell. But he had not prepared for his own voice to betray him. Later, in the corridor again, I heard him boasting once more, laughter mixing with arrogance. He spoke of inheritance, of property, of debts disguised as plans. His tone was careless, almost gleeful. He thought himself untouchable. The recorder caught every word. Red light glowing steadily in the dim hall. I stood motionless, listening, the weight of years pressing down on me. Decades of night shifts, of funeral costs, of tuition fees, of bills paid with trembling hands. I saw them all compressed into this moment. A man who called himself my son, dismissing me as a rival to be broken. When his voice faded down the corridor, I stepped back into the light. The music swelled, glasses clinked, guests laughed. To them nothing had changed. To me everything had. I returned to my seat, calmer than I had been all day. My fork touched the plate. My glass of water steadied my hand. The recorder was hidden, safe, undeniable. For the first time since morning I allowed myself a slow breath. The weapon was mine now and I would use it. Not with rage, not with cries or curses but with simple fact. The time was drawing near. A mother's toast was expected. The microphone would be placed in my hand, the hall silent to hear me. They would expect soft words of blessing. Instead they would hear the truth. The reception hall glowed with gold light. Chandeliers caught the glimmer of crystal glasses, and the tables were crowded with plates of half-eaten food, wine stains, and the hushed gossip of family members who had already judged me weak. The master of ceremonies tapped the microphone, his voice cheerful. And now a very special moment. The mother of the groom will share a few words. All eyes turned to me. For a heartbeat, the weight of their stares pressed against my chest. I stood slowly, every joint deliberate, the wig tight against my scalp, the purse clasped in my hand. My chair scraped softly against the floor, and the sound cut through the chatter. I walked to the microphone. The hall quieted. The clinking of cutlery stopped. Even the music faded into silence. I lifted my glass. My voice was steady. Today, I came here prepared to offer my son a gift. A gift that represented a lifetime of work. For 40 years I served as a nurse. I stood through nights of fever and loss. I built savings with swollen hands and tired eyes. And I had planned this very day to transfer half of my inheritance to Marcus. Gasps rippled through the room. I saw his shoulders straighten at the altar table, a flicker of greed lighting his eyes. I continued, calm and measured. But before any gift is given, truth must be spoken. Yes, you deserve to hear something. Not from me. From him. I reached into my purse. The hall leaned forward. My fingers pressed the recorder's button. And the speakers filled with my son's voice, unfiltered, undeniable. I did what I had to. Shaved her bald. Now she'll understand she's not the boss. Today is my day, my family, my inheritance. The words struck the hall like a hammer. Forks dropped. Glasses stilled. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. I did not move. I let his voice echo a second time, replayed on the device, raw and cruel. Across the room, Kiara's face drained of color. She turned to Marcus, her voice sharp, cutting through the silence. Is this true? Did you do this? His face paled, his lips parted. It's not what it sounds like. But I raised my hand, palm outward, steady as a judge. Not another word. My voice filled the room. Not a single dollar. Not a single paper. You chose humiliation instead of respect. You chose inheritance over love. You chose cruelty over truth. The guests shifted, whispering, their eyes moving from me to Marcus like jurors delivering their verdict. His shoulders slumped. The groom's mask fell. Kiera removed her ring slowly, her hand trembling, her eyes fixed on the man she had thought she knew. I cannot be the wife of a man capable of this. She placed the ring on the table with finality. Marcus reached for her, but she stepped back. The distance between them widened in the silence. I set the recorder on the table beside the microphone. It lay there like a gavel, the final word. My glass remained in my hand, clear water catching the light. I raised it slightly, not in celebration but in closure. This is my toast, I said. To truth. To boundaries. To the freedom to live without fear. I drank calm, steady. The hall erupted, not in applause but in murmurs, in broken conversations, in the uneasy shuffling of guests who now saw the groom not as a man beginning a family, but as a son who had betrayed his mother. I placed the glass down, stepped away from the microphone, and walked toward the exit. The path opened before me, guests pulling back as if parting the sea. I did not hurry. My steps were measured, my back straight, the recorder still glowing faintly on the table behind me. I left the hall as calmly as I had entered. Inside me there was no rage, no trembling, only stillness. I did not look back when I left the hall. The recorder would speak for me long after I was gone. The truth had been set down in his own voice, beyond denial, beyond excuse. In the days that followed, I acted with the same calm. I went to my lawyer. The papers I had once prepared to transfer my estate to Marcus were destroyed. In their place, I signed documents that moved the property, the savings, and the house into a charitable foundation for scholarships. The years of labor he thought of as his future money vanished from his grasp with a single signature. Word spread quickly. At church, in the market, on the street, people no longer greeted him with respect. They whispered instead. That's the one who shaved his own mother's head. That's the one who tried to steal from her. His reputation dissolved faster than money could buy it back. Kiera left within the week. She placed her ring on my kitchen table and said softly, I am sorry. I thought it was your choice. I thought he was different. Her eyes were full of sincerity, not pity. Before she walked out the door, she added, You deserve respect. Alone, Marcus came to me 3 weeks later. His frame seemed smaller, his cheeks hollow, his eyes vacant. He stood at my doorway, his voice a whisper. Mom, I have nothing left. Forgive me. At least with words. I looked at him, my only child, a man undone by his own hands. My voice was calm. Marcus, I forgive you because you are my son. But forgiveness does not mean I give you everything again. Now live the life you chose. I closed the door. The sound was final but not cruel. It was justice. One morning I stepped outside without the wig. Short fuzz covered my scalp, soft and new. Children played on the street, their laughter bright against the autumn air. A boy stopped, pointed, and called out with innocent cheer. Mrs. Johnson, you've got a haircut like a cool basketball player. The others laughed, not with malice, but with the simplicity of childhood. I laughed too, light and free. The shame was gone. The fear was gone. I stood on my porch, breathing the crisp air, knowing that behind me were years of humiliation, and ahead of me stretched a path I chose for myself. For Marcus there was only emptiness, without wife, without money, without respect. But I did not carry his burden anymore. I carried only peace. My dear ones, you have heard my story. A story of years of sacrifice, of betrayal that cut deeper than any knife, and of a boundary finally drawn. I chose not revenge but truth. I chose to say, my money is off the table, and to walk forward free. Tell me, if it were you, how would you have acted? Would you have forgiven as I did? Or would you have closed the door forever? Your thoughts matter to me. Please share them in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe, to like, and to support this channel. Every word, every gesture helps these stories find others who may need them. Thank you for listening. Your presence is my strength.